Okay, welcome to the TechOWL AAC Awareness Month 2024 webinar series, our Lunch and Learns. There you go. Today's presentation is called Let's Give Them Something to Talk About. Today we're going to talk all about how to adapt activities to make them accessible for individuals and how to incorporate your AAC into those activities. Just a little bit of logistics. So live transcription captioning is available. If you're not seeing it, it might be that your Zoom account isn't updated to the latest version. We ask that you please type any questions into the Q&A section and then any comments in the chat section. There'll be time at the end for more questions, but if I don't mind stopping, and if something comes up that you want to know a little more about that I'm currently talking about, we can keep the flow going and I'll answer it on the spot. Or if it's just a general question that can be saved to the end, that's cool too. So your learning objectives, by the end of this webinar, you're going to be, I hope you're going to be able to identify at least 3 tools to help adapt activities, problem solve how to adapt an activity on your own, and understand how to incorporate AAC into adapted activities. I think the slide that said my name was skipped over. So I'm Jen. I am one of the AAC services coordinators here at TechOWL. So just a couple of disclaimers. I am a speech language pathologist. That is the perspective that I'm speaking from. You're going to hear me use different types of language. So it'll be identity first and person first language. So you might hear me say an individual with a disability or a disabled person. And that's really to accommodate everyone's preference and to make this as inclusive as possible. We're going to dive right in. So adaptive equipment. This picture is from our last ACEs program. It's a summer program. It's a real good time. And you see someone using a regular blender that we have adapted. So let's switch it up and talk about switches. So tried to kind of categorize switches into, different areas based on kind of the way that you access them. But just note, there are so many different types of switches out there, and this is not an exhaustive list. This is just showing you some of the things that are available to get you started and give you an idea. So you see up in the top corner, the big red button, that's called a big red. And it can be pretty large. So that's really for your individuals that you're looking for a larger button to activate. You need a little extra surface area, which is awesome and great. If that's what you need, that does exist for you. And you can switch out the colors usually. Then underneath it is a jelly beamer. So that is a wireless switch, which is, you'll see a lot of these have that wire attached. And if you're hooking it up to something, sometimes a wire can get in the way. So this is the button part. There's also a receiver that's attached to the item that is switch accessible. So that is also an option. They are a little smaller. And as you can see, it's not just the button because you have to have the part that connects to the receiver that transmits there. In the middle, you see these are tiny little spec switches. It's hard to tell from the picture, but they very, very teeny tiny switches. And again, that can be really helpful for individuals who are able to access a smaller switch, maybe are using multiple switches. They come in different colors, so it can be color coded for different activities. And again, all of these are mountable, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we go on. And then on the far right, you see that's a pressure switch. So really, you just squeeze it, and that pressure is what activates. We have movement activated switches, which are super cool and not always talked about. You have a proximity switch, which is candy corn switch. It's real. You have a big one or you have a tiny one, and you don't even have to touch it to activate it. You just kind of hover over it. So if touch activation is not the best mode for you, you can just kind of get close to it with any of this. We'll talk about this a little bit, but anywhere on the body. So I'm showing you by using my hand, but these can be mounted anywhere for switch accessibility, wherever that switch point is for the individual. A tilt switch, and it's in the name. So as it tilts, so he's wearing it on his head, as he's tilting, that's activating. Again, very cool. Just kind of using whatever mobility that an individual might have. And then we have an eye blink switch. It attaches to the glasses and it will activate upon blinking. We have toggle switches. So that one all the way on the left is a wobble switch. And literally it just, you kind of hit it and that's what activates it. The name, again, all of these are toggles. So you touch them and that's how they activate. You can mount them. Two individuals on the screen have them set up next to their head. So you see on the left, we have one toggle switch. On the right, we have two for two switch scanning or for two switches, two functions. Sometimes you'll have that with mobility. If one moves forward, a power wheelchair forward, another one can move the power wheelchair backwards or stop and go, things like that. And then the one in the middle connects to your hand and it's just a very light touch with your finger. These, we have some sip, puff, mouth switches. So you have the sip, puff switch as well as a quad stick. You're going to see a quad stick a lot if you ever see videos of individuals doing adaptive gaming. There are a lot of individuals out there who use that for adaptive gaming, and it's been marketed in that way as well for a lot of different activities. But you kind of, again, it's all in the name. It's that sip and puff. And there's also switches that connect underneath the chin so you can activate things as you're using them. So really, really great options beyond just our usual, if you've seen the big button switch, there's so much beyond that. We're just going to call these kind of unconventional switches because it's kind of our miscellaneous. So this is to show that it can look a variety of ways and can be used for different types of accessibility. So the one all the way in the top left corner is, it lights up when you activate it. So does that cute little ladybug switch in the middle. It'll light up and it vibrates. So it might be something, maybe a younger individual who's just starting out with switch accessibility. It'll kind of attract your attention. It looks fun. It's almost a toy in and of itself, but when you activate it, it can activate whatever it is that you have it connected to in the activity. There's also ones that have kind of bumps and ridges if you're looking for some sensory feedback. If you have a good grip, and then you can just use that one in the middle and press the button. The one in the top right corner is actually smaller than it looks in the picture, but it's a finger isolation switch. So really working on isolating that finger and getting your finger in there. But I've also seen people hold it in their hand and use their thumb, or it's been mounted to armrests or trays. And then if your finger kind of rests on the tray, or hand rests on the tray, you can use your thumb to activate it. And then that bottom one is a plate switch, and it kind of rocks a little bit, and it's a bigger switch. So that way you have a little more surface area if that fine motor wise, you need something a little bigger to access. So really to know that there is a switch for every situation. Know that they exist, know that you don't know what's going to work until you try it. You can try a variety of ones in a variety of different positions. As I said, we really want to look at full body. So not just your hand. Head arrays are fantastic, but again, I've seen people use it with their elbows, with their knees, with their foot. If you can tap on a switch. So really think about where that purposeful functional movement is going to be for a consumer, and that is where you can hook a switch up. Now that you have the switches, let's connect it. Let's see what exists out there for you to connect those switches to, because a switch is great, but if you don't have something to use it with, it's just a cute little switch. So some of you might be familiar with this. This is one of my favorites. I am obsessed with the Power Link. I think it can do so much, and there are so many functions to it. Anything that plugs into a wall, anything that has an outlet can now be switch accessible with a Power Link. So if you see there's little connectors on the side, you hook whatever, you connect whatever it is and plug it in there. You also plug it into the wall. There's a little side thing where you connect your switch, and you can have it on like a duration of time. So you hold the switch down and the item is doing that function while the switch is being held down, or it can be for a time period. You hit the switch and then it goes for X amount of seconds. So really it's or you can play around with the settings within it, and it's a great way to adapt so many different activities. Activities of daily living. If you can connect it to a lamp, you can connect it to so many different things. We're going to talk about cooking activities and things like that. Interrupted battery interrupters. Again, if it has, so moving away from things that plug into the wall with an outlet, now we're going towards something with a battery. So if it has a battery, you can take this little thing called a battery interrupter. You put it in front of the battery, like inside, and it literally stops the battery from doing its job. And the other side is connected to the switch. So then when you hit the switch, the switch is doing what the battery normally would do. There are some caveats to this. So if it has kind of those plushy toys where you press the paw or the hand or the foot, whatever it is, and it dances and moves, those can be a little more complicated than just your regular. If something has an on off, it makes it a little easier. There's internal modifications. That's a little bit of a deeper dive than we can go into today. With those kind of plushies and remote control cars, they have a little bit more to it, but they can be adapted. An alternate spinner. So this is for kind of your random selections. And when it comes, it has kind of the dice on it. So that way, if you had a dice game, you can randomly make your choice. As if you were spinning the dice, you press the button. There's a button at the bottom, but you can also connect an external switch to it. But you can make this look however you want. So the picture with the dice on it, you can put a different background on there, and you can make other choices. You can put pictures of items for an activity that you're doing that doesn't quite require something, a specific choice. You could do colors if you're playing a board game. So that way, you're going to move this number to this color, things like that. The next few slides are on adaptive gaming. This is so rad. So there are the three main types of gaming consoles that are out have adaptive consoles. Losing my words today. Controllers to go with them. So this is your Xbox. This was the first one to come out, and the one on the right is the adaptive controller. And you'll see you can use it. It's bigger than your regular controller, But so you can use it like that if you need the bigger buttons, or on the back, you'll see there are switch ports for every function. So you can hook a switch up for all of those different functions within a game. And you can put it, there's a way to do it for different levels. So you can do it for different games that have different functions, which is really great. And again, all of the switches that you have can be mounted in different positions. Any mount that is used can be connected. This is the Nintendo. It's the Horaflex. And again, similar, you have switch ports that you connect. You can use this as is. The buttons are smaller than the Xbox adaptive controller, but kind of set up for a little easier access than actually gripping something. But you can also connect switches to it. You can do both of them. You can use the buttons on the controller itself and external switches if you want. And we've had individuals have success with that too. Adaptive gaming is a really great way to engage with anyone, those around you that are playing games. I know people my age all play video games. The kids are all playing it. I sound old when I say the kids, but they are. They play different games. It's a great way to engage with your peers. It's a great way to play with your siblings. It's a great way to play with your parents. If one of your parents is a gamer, or if they're not, that's okay too. And there are ways to modify and adapt the games. If you just have one switch, if you're at that level where you're starting out with basic cause effect, if you can just hit one switch, you can still play games. So example, Mario Kart, you can have the settings go to autopilot. Basically, the car's driving, it's doing its thing, and the only time you have to hit the switch is when you're throwing a banana peel or honking the horn or whatever. So that way you're still playing the game, but you are engaging with it in the way that works for you. And then as time goes on, we can add another switch and work on some of those steering skills and the different parts. You can also have games in, go back for a second. So the Xbox has a great co-pilot feature that you can play a game as the same person with someone else. So if I'm playing with someone who is doing all of the, for kind of a first person, and we're walking around the world, that person might be doing that and navigating, but I'm hitting the switch when it's time to collect things in that world, or, whatever, or jump, or, throw a punch, whatever it is that I'm able to do. And we're doing it together. So it's a really great way to play those games side by side together, and interact. And again, if you're playing a game, there's so much you can use to communicate about. You can use the vocabulary specific to the game. You can use your core vocabulary that we've talked about in previous webinar series, go, stop, more, want, whatever it is. So really, really great way to engage with something that, we're all playing, not all of us, but a lot of us are playing video games. So, let's make it as accessible as possible. This is the PlayStation adaptive controller. Really great for one-handed controlling is kind of the feedback I've gotten from individuals. It's the one on the right. It has less switch ports. So you're using the buttons that are on there, which you can switch around. They don't have to stay static in those positions. That piece just that pops off, and you can rotate it, whatever works best for access. And I believe it's 3 switch ports for all of your PlayStation games. I know I'm chatting kind of fast, so feel free to jump in with any questions if they come up. This is adaptive gaming, the Logitech kind of gaming kit accessories. So we talked about switches. Logitech put out a kit that comes with a bunch of different switches for you, which for a variety of needs specific to use with games. They come with the labels, so that way you know, okay, this is the A button, this is the B button, this is X, this is my right trigger, things like that. It has a Velcro board, or again, things are mountable and we can put them wherever is the most beneficial. These are a couple pictures from our community space of a gaming event that we put on just to try out different things, as well as some gaming consoles that we've done. And you can just see different setups. So one of these has a steering wheel that we can use with the Nintendo Switch. I think we were playing Mario Kart at the time. But what's cool is we can all just play games together and enjoy those activities with whoever is there. There's such a great gaming community that you can be a part of and interact with. Or you can have something a little, this middle picture has a little more elaborate setup. And there are external switches, or there's also an external joystick. There are different options for that. So it can be a bit daunting, especially if you're not a gamer, but know that like I was not a gamer and I can hook up a Nintendo Switch and play Mario Kart. And so it's not as scary as it seems. It's pretty cool. Smart home tech. It's just going to be one slide, but I really wanted to kind of make this available for everyone to know about. So things like an Echo are really, really great, especially for accessing your environment. I'm not going to say the name, but it starts with an A because it's around us. But if you say that name on your, you can pre-program your device to say, hey, A, and then you can say whatever you want. Play this song, turn on a timer, things like that. So it's a great way for an individual who might have a more complex body, who motorically might even struggle with some of those switch access things, but can use their communication device with whatever accessibility mode they're using, whether it's, you know, eye gaze or switch access for that. And they can interact with their environment and they can access things. They can turn on and off the lights. They can turn on and off the TV. They can participate in a cooking activity by setting a timer. They can, you know, play the music that they want to play. So it's a really, really awesome thing that works great with your communication devices. 3D printing is a great tool. For those of you who are in Pennsylvania, we have our Create Together program, which we 3D print assistive technology free of charge for Pennsylvanians, and we'll send it to you. You know, it doesn't have to be fancy, expensive. Light tech can be the right tech. I think if anyone has been participating in our webinars for the past few years, we did a presentation on that a couple of years ago. It's, you know, having the ability to make this stuff has made things so much more cost effective. If you're not in Pennsylvania, we do provide a link to kind of the plan for the file for each of the prints that we have on the website. And if you connect with your local library, a lot of times they actually either have or know where you can connect with someone that has a 3D printer, and then you just take that file and it'll print there. So on the right, you see a variety of 3D printed items. On the left, you see key guards. So for communication devices, if motorically, maybe you're struggling with like that finger isolation, or if you're kind of misactivating a lot, you can put an overlay on top of it, a key guard, and it really just kind of helps get your fingers where they need to go. Make it. Let's look at a couple DIY things. Love a DIY, love doing things, you know, for less. Because it makes things so much more accessible for everyone, right? Things are really costly. Insurance doesn't cover all of this AT. So What are some like quick adaptations that we can make to make things more accessible or easier for individuals maybe we're working with or for ourselves? And let's advocate for ourselves that we need these things. I love reflective tape. You can get it at the dollar store. It's really helpful for individuals with peripheral visual impairment, who do better with something that moves, but rather than taking pictures and being like, okay, find it, because that's not effective. It gives the illusion of movement, so it draws the eyes in. And again, one roll of tape will cost you $1.25 at this point. And you can cut them into little strips and easy breezy. This picture on the right is just to kind of show the contrast between matte and regular laminate. So the one on the bottom is your matte or glare-free laminate. It's a little more costly than regular laminate, but again, if there's any kind of visual impairment or if you're using it outside, that glare can be brutal, and having something that's more matte can really make all the difference. This is also a high contrast page set that you're seeing in front of you, which those little adaptations to your communication system can make a world of difference. I love a pool noodle. So much you can do with a pool noodle. Just a few options here, but like in the summer when they come out at the dollar store, you know, see one of us with our arms full of them. There's so much you can do with them. These are for holding cards, or you can make a pencil grip. And again, one long pool noodle, it's like $1.25, and you can cut it up and use it for so many different things. You can build up a utensil when you're eating, things like that. So there's really so much that you can do. And you can pick a fun color for different activities. Slant boards. So if you're using something low tech, or if you're doing an art activity and you need something to kind of stabilize your arms on, a slant board can be really, really helpful. But again, when you look online and you want to get a slant board, it can be a little pricier. Binder clip, chip clip, and a hot glue gun if you can get your hands on one, or even just like if you need something quick, just some tape on whatever binder you have sitting around. And you do it at the top and boom, you've got a slant board. It just, wow. And you can get it, if you want to do Gorilla Glue, you can get that from the dollar store too. Love a dollar store find, or the dollar spot at Target. I'm not name dropping places, but those are the places I go for my low tech options. All right, so now that we've talked about kind of what tech exists, how do we actually implement it? Like, it's great that there's something called a power link, but cool, what do I do with that? So I wanted to kind of make it fun for what's happening moving forward. So if you celebrate, Halloween is coming up. I'm clearly a Linda Belcher in this picture. That is who I would be. Love it. I've said all right many, many times, even before I knew that that show existed. So a puking pumpkin, which sounds gross, but it's fun. It's interactive. It's like a nice, you know, pumpkin carving activity. So I tried to chunk this up for you in terms of here's an activity. What AT do I need? What are the supplies? And then what vocabulary can I work on within this activity? And these are just to give you very basic ideas to kind of get the motors turning, get us thinking about different activities we can use this with. In this picture, it's an older power link. That blue box is an old power link, but you need that and a switch. That is all the AT that you need for this activity. Your supplies, you get a pumpkin. The baking soda, vinegar, and food coloring are kind of what make it puke. And then an electric carving knife. If you don't want to use the same one you use at Thanksgiving, see if you can get one maybe on sale, or use your older one for your pumpkin carving activities. But it's so much more accessible than, you know, those kits you get at CVS where you have to kind of really carve into it. You connect your switch to the power link, you connect your carver to the power link, and then if I were the person kind of running the activity, or if we were in a house and everyone is doing a pumpkin carving, because that's super fun, we could pass the switch around and people would activate the switch while I'm holding the knife and, oh, excuse me, carving the pumpkin. So you're going to take the top off and then you can make a face, or at least just like a little hole in the front to make a mouth. And that's kind of how you incorporate that AT with it. If the person's not physically carving it, they are making the carving happen. When I did this with my students, they thought it was hysterical to stop and start the carving knife on me. When I got real good in there, they're like, haha, no, now we're going to stop it because now it's stuck. And then, you know, if someone wants to do the pouring, it's the rest of that stuff is what's making it puke, or there is an additional AT item if you wanted. It's like a cup pourer that sits and you hook a switch into it. And when you press the switch, it slowly rotates the cup so it will pour. So that is an option. And then the vocabulary, you know, you've got your core vocabulary, stop, go, turn it on and off. And that can be something, you know, one person might be directing another person what to do, or they're saying, you know, I'm going to make it go, and then they make it go. Your fringe vocabulary is related to the activity, but you get to work on colors and pour and the actual pumpkin itself. It's a sensory activity. You're seeing it, you're smelling it, you're feeling it. Vinegar smells quite potent. And then you can have your exclamations and your fun vocabulary. Oh, that's gross, or that's really cool. You know, you can program devices to make, you know, kind of a sound, you know, or on an external switch, you can have it do that as well. If you don't want the mess of that, which I completely understand, it's messy, you could just carve your pumpkin and not make it puke. And again, you just need your power link and your switch. This is a newer power link, and that is a wireless switch you see. So you'll see the receiver is connected to the power link, and then the switch is on the side. And then you just need your pumpkin and your carving knife, and easy breezy. You can work on the vocabulary for body parts, you know, face body parts. How many? We're going to do an eye. Do we want another eye? It's a pumpkin. Give it as many, you know, eyes and noses as you want it to. It can look however you want. You can work on shapes. You know, do we want it to be a triangle? Maybe we want the mouth to just be like a circle. You can work on your prepositions. You know, we're going to take the top off and we're going to do this in the front or on the sides. The pictures on here, you see it has some visuals for directions as well. So we know the step-by-step directions of what we're doing. Again, you have a sensory experience of pulling out the inside and feeling it. You can talk about that. Is it gross? Do we like it? You can then take the seeds and cook them. And then you have a whole new activity that you're working on. And everyone can take turns. Again, if it's not just one-on-one and you're in kind of a group situation, multiple people can do different things. So if you don't want to carve the pumpkin, and again, you want even less mess, which is totally fine, you can just decorate it. So you can decorate it, you can paint it if you want to. I didn't really do an art activity on this one, but if you wanted to, you can paint it however you want with adaptive painting materials, or you could just hand painting, things like that. This one uses a GoTalk, which is a mid-tech communication device, which can be used in conjunction with your personal communication device. So we all use multimodal communication. I talk, I text, I email, my hands are always moving as I'm talking. So our AAC users can use multimodal communication as well. So maybe they have their page sets that they have the vocabulary they're working on their communication device, but externally we can have a Go Talk that has body parts on it. And this is using more or less object symbols. They're just the parts from a Mr. Potato Head that I taped on there, and it says the different body parts. So if someone, isn't at the point where if they do better with object symbols than an actual photograph or a picture symbol, I think outside the box. What do we have on hand that is the same? I had a Mr. Potato Head sitting there, so let's use that. You can also use those to decorate your pumpkin. So you can use those, or sometimes you can find them again, like in one of your local stores where they have a little bit of a perforated edge, and you can just push it in. If you can push that in, it creates the face on the pumpkin. Set up a bunch of pumpkins and pick out the one that you want. Do you want a big one? Do you want a small one? So really thinking kind of so many different things you can do with just like a pumpkin activity, right? Similar core vocabulary, and then again, very similar fringe, but it can go beyond that. Maybe in these they really don't like it and they just want to like take a break and walk away. It's not their thing. That's cool too. Art. So an adapted brush. If you want to brush your own hand, you'll see that most of these are handprints. They're all handprints or footprints, not most of them, just all of them. So if you have sensitivity on your hands, you might have a little less sensitivity on your feet. If tactily defensive on your hands and that's not your thing, maybe try painting your foot. And that might be something that you enjoy more. So you could do a pumpkin, then we have a spider, and then we have the feet as a ghost or a candy corn. So if you can physically paint, or if you have multiple people in an activity, again, maybe someone wants to pick their friend to come over and paint their hand for them or paint their foot. And that can be like a fun time, like a goofy project where we're all, painting each other's hands and feet and making something to decorate the house. Your supplies are just paper, paint, and if you don't like touching feet and you don't like the mask, gloves, and soap and water, because wash that off. And then very similar core vocabulary, but I added like and don't like. Again, that is appropriate for all of them, but because this is more sensory based, that's something that you should have readily available. The items that we are painting would be accessible as fringe. It's wet. You can have phrases like that tickles, or, that's disgusting. So all kinds of fun stuff. And then your colors and things like that. So beyond Halloween, winter is coming. So let's see what we can do in the winter time. This picture is to also let you know that like things don't have to look perfect. That was supposed to be a snowman. That was my snowman. Everyone else's looked great. Mine was a little melted, and that's fine because let's just say it was more towards spring. Love hot chocolate when it gets really chilly out, and this is a great way to incorporate like some cooking activity into it. So you can use the blender. Back up your AT again, power link and switch. This power link is working overtime in this presentation. But you've got your power link, your switch, and then you have a blender, and then just instant hot chocolate and whatever toppings you want. So the blender, you can use the pourer too if you wanted to. But the blender gives it like the frothiness. And once you've poured everything in, you hit the switch, it blends it up, we pour it out if we want to taste, or if we don't want to taste it, we can make it for a friend, we can make it for a sibling. for our parents, you know, whoever it is that we want to. And then if you wanted to add some things to the top, you know, you've got your whipped cream, which I think that can be very difficult for access, but that can be something that someone says, okay, go, now stop, like too much, or, you know, keep going. I would like a lot of whipped cream on my hot chocolate. Um, you can take your cookies and your peppermint and put them in a bag, and you can smash them either with a rolling pin or, and that can be something if you, again, you're not physically doing that, you can tell the person to be smashing it, when to go, when to stop. And then all of your fringe, your supplies, you've got colors for all of your senses, smelling, tasting. If chocolate's not your jam, maybe we can come up with something else that's an instant. If you want coffee, you can froth up a coffee cup too. And then hot and cold, so good time. And then this one has a picture, you'll see an eye gaze device in the background that has some of the supplies that we might be using, because that's an option too. And that doesn't have to be on, again, their dedicated device. That can be on a separate device for something low or mid tech. Winter bingo. I love bingo. I think it's super fun. So your AT, you need an alternate, a switch, and then a little or a Big Mac. And we didn't talk about the little or Big Macs. That's on the kind of that AAC side. That's that mid-tech, but it's just a button switch that has voice output. And this one would have recorded like bingo. So that way, when the person got bingo, you don't want to take up real estate on their communication device. They can hit the switch and say bingo. But this is a great way to use kind of the randomizing of your alternate, where it has pictures that are the same as the bingo cards. You hit the switch, it spins. Oh, okay, we have a snowman. Whoever has a snowman, you can use those, like, they're like those dot things, or you can put something physical on it if you wanted to, or you can have assistance and ask someone for help doing it, which is a great way to use your communication device to fill up your squares. And you'll see, you know, all the vocabulary that you can target, but again, it's not an exhaustive list. And it's a great way to kind of talk about some of the winter vocabulary that's coming up. Maybe it's winter clothing, or, you know, the icicles. Oh, it snowed last week. Do we remember that? It can be actual photographs, or it can be symbols that you find, or objects. The big takeaway, what's most important, I want everyone to remember, just have fun with your AT. I know it can be kind of scary and daunting. It just have a good time. Think about the activity and then break it down, and think about ways that we can help the people that we work with or ourselves. How can we make this more accessible? There is, you know, we can find a way to make this easier for people to participate. And then the question of, well, we have this communication device, but it's not, we don't know why it doesn't get used. It's just sitting there. They don't want to use it. Let's give an activity to do something during and have a good time. Have fun. Don't let perfect get in the way. We're going to make mistakes. We make them all the time. That's how we learn. That's how some of the funniest moments happen. And, you know, I've had some of my, the AAC users I've worked with, that's when some of the funniest things come out from them on their devices, because they're like, you're silly, or like, what did you just do? You know, like, just, we're going to breathe through it. It's okay. It's a great way to engage. These are some pictures from our previous ACEs. You'll see adaptive art activities, and there's adaptive gaming, and we're doing it. We're just having a good time. And if it's not perfect, that's okay, because it's never gonna, you know, if I were playing a video game on my own as a new video gamer, it's definitely not going to be perfect for me. So let's have a good time. Some additional resources. Again, if you are in the state of Pennsylvania, these are these this AT that we talked about today is accessible through our lending library. You can go online and get it shipped to you for free to try it before you buy it and see if it works. And maybe, you know, if you kind of live in a community home, this is something that'd be beneficial for a variety of individuals, and everyone would get to participate together. If you know, live at home with your family, this is stuff that you can use with your siblings and with, you know, your parents and anyone who you live with to just engage in those things. So please check it out. If you are not in Pennsylvania, take a look at your local AT Act program and see what they have available at their lending library. And again, don't sleep on the things that you can make yourself. You can absolutely give that a go and DIY things. I am a very fast talker. I'm going to go ahead and apologize because we're coming to the end. But follow us on social media. We talk about a lot of this AT on our social media, and how to use it and where to find it and what's new coming out. There's a lot out there I didn't go into for mealtime. There are different things that you can use to adapt your meals and access self-feeding. So it's really explore and take a look and follow us. And this is our general TechOWL information. Feel free to take a look at our website or email us. We are on Temple University's campus within the Institute on Disabilities. We have assistive tech resource centers throughout the state of Pennsylvania, but that is where we are from today. Please check out our upcoming webinar session for next week, Communication Partner Instruction, Considerations for Supporting Adults Who Use AAC with Cassie. That's next Wednesday at noon. If you haven't already registered, please do. I'm going to leave this up for a minute and I'm going to kind of open it up to questions at this point. If there were anything that were thrown up in the Q&A or in the chat, or if you have them now, well, you please let me know how I did. It helps us know. Are there any? Look through the chats. Oh, thank you, Brianna. Oh, thank you, Kelly. I hope it kind of gets everyone's, just kind of gets you start thinking about things. I think that when you sit down with an activity, it's like, well, I don't even know where to start, right? And sometimes you just have to start with other examples and it gets you thinking about all the other stuff. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave it kind of here. If anyone has questions or any more comments, feel free. But I hope this was really helpful. Sorry, I'm so fast at talking.